All right, so you're going to definitely be asked at least a couple times on the AP exam to come up with an equation for a tangent line. So if it's asking, find the equation for the line tangent. So what are we going to start with finding an equation for line tangent? Point slope, right? So your y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So you need to know a point and a slope. In this question, we're already given the point. What are we going to have to do to find the slope? Plug it into this. This point will just, if you plug in, you're just going to end up getting that point. The derivative, right? We got to find out what dy dx is, right? So our slope is, dy dx at 3, 1, right? So we need to figure out what dy dx means. We got to take the derivative, right? So let's find the derivative of this. So one thing that's always hard for students is implicit differentiation, is finding the derivatives when we've got these x's and y's kind of all mixed together. So in this case, what are we going to have to do with this first term? The product rule, right? So it's our derivative of the first times the second plus the derivative of the second, which is dy, which is 2y dy dx times the first minus the derivative of 3y, which is just 3 dy dx. And then that equals 0. We got to make sure that we recognize that that's going to equal 0 right there. Okay. All right. And so now we got to solve for dy dx. And so that means I'm going to leave everything with dy dx on one side of the equation. I'm going to take everything that does not have a dy dx and I'm going to move it to the other. So I'm going to subtract my y squared. And so I'm going to have this 2xy dy dx. So I kind of gathered the terms here a little bit, did a little simplifying on that one. And then equals negative y squared. And then I'm going to go ahead and factor out this dy dx. And so I end up with this dy dx equals negative y squared over 2xy minus 3. All right? So then if we're going to find the slope, this m value, well, it's just going to end up being at that point. So it's going to end up being negative 1 squared over 2 times 3 times 1 minus 3. And so I end up getting negative 1 over, and that's going to be 6 minus 3, which is just going to be 3. So I get negative 1/3 is my m. So that's the slope of the tangent line at this point. And so then my equation for my line tangent is going to be this y minus 1 equals negative 1/3 x minus 3. And so this would be an equation of a tangent line. Now you'd be able to leave your answer like this on a free response question, but you can also add it over y equals negative 1/3 x minus 3 plus 1. I would not distribute or anything else out because typically they might make you plug in a value, and plugging in a value into this point slope formula is going to be a lot easier because sometimes they're going to give you a number close to 3, like either 4 or 3.1 or something like that. That's going to be a lot easier to evaluate in this form. Okay. Any questions over that? Yes.
Do you lose points if you just did that math in your head for like the slope?